Imagine you're about to sign your own name to your own death warrant. It's the summer of 1776. The document on the table calls the King of England a tyrant, and under English law that one sentence is treason. The penalty for treason is hanging. 56 men signed it anyway. The viral posts say they were hunted, tortured, and died in British prisons. Some of those stories are lies, and some of the real ones are worse. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which is which. Put yourself in that room in Philadelphia. You represent about 2.5 million colonists, farmers, merchants, lawyers. Across the ocean stands the most powerful empire on Earth, and its answer is already visible: a British fleet massing off New York. Hundreds of ships, tens of thousands of soldiers. This war will grind on for 7 more years. Britain won't recognize American independence until 1783. None of the men in this room know that. What they know is simpler. If this gamble fails, this paper is Exhibit A at their trial. You are not signing a birthday card, you are signing a confession. The last line of the Declaration isn't poetry, it's a contract. We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Lives, fortunes. In that order, because that was the actual price list. There's a famous story that Benjamin Franklin looked around the room and joked, "We must all hang together, or most assuredly, we shall all hang separately." Historians can't confirm he ever said it, but the fear behind the joke, that was completely real. So what actually happened to these 56 marked men? That's where the internet gets it wrong. Every July, the same essay goes viral. It's called The Price They Paid. You've seen it, maybe your uncle posts it every year. It claims 5 signers were captured as traitors and tortured before they died. It claims 9 died from wounds. It reads like a war memorial. It's been shared millions of times, first as a chain email, now as a copy-paste post, and fact-checkers have torn it apart. Here's the record. 5 signers were captured by the British. Not one of them died in captivity. Not one was tortured. 4 weren't even arrested for signing. They were taken as prisoners of war, weapons in hand. George Walton, wounded and captured at Savannah. Thomas Hayward, Arthur Middleton, and Edward Rutledge, taken at the fall of Charleston. So the legend is broken, case closed, not even close. Because the 5th prisoner is where this story stops being a myth and becomes a tragedy. Richard Stockton of New Jersey. On a November night in 1776, Loyalist neighbors dragged him from the house where he'd hidden his family and marched him to New York's Provost Jail, a place prisoners described as freezing, starving, and brutal. Weeks in that cell did what the British Army couldn't. Stockton signed General Howe's pardon and promised to sit out the war, the only signer known to have recanted. Within months, he took a new oath of loyalty to the revolution. But his body was wrecked, his estate ransacked, his library burned. He died in 1781 before the war was even won. Some historians still argue about how far his surrender went. The strongest claim traces back to a rumor spread by his enemies. But nobody disputes what that prison cost him. Stockton broke under pressure no one should have to bear. The next signer faced the same choice, with his own children as the ransom. Abraham Clark, also New Jersey. 2 of his sons were captured fighting for the Continental Army and thrown onto the prison ship Jersey, a rotting, dismasted hulk anchored in New York Harbor. Prisoners called it hell afloat. Disease, starvation, darkness below decks. More Americans died on ships like this one than in every battle of the war combined. Each morning, the guards opened the hatches with the same words: "Rebels, turn out your dead." Because their father's name was on the declaration, the Clarks were reportedly singled out for the worst of it. And then came the offer: renounce the declaration and your boys go free. He said no. Congress threatened retaliation, conditions eased, and, almost miraculously, both sons survived. Clark never spoke publicly about it. He'd pledged his life. The war made him pledge his children's too. But if you think that's the cruelest bill the war sent a signer, there's a knock on a different door coming. Francis Lewis of New York wasn't home when the British came after the Battle of Long Island. His wife Elizabeth was. They destroyed the estate and locked her up for months. No bed, no change of clothes. Washington eventually got her back in a prisoner exchange, traded for the wives of 2 loyalist officials, but her health never recovered. She died in 1779. Louis poured most of what remained of his fortune into the war effort and died far poorer than he'd lived. He had signed the Declaration. His wife paid for it first. John Hart of New Jersey, nearly 60, spent that winter hunted, sleeping in woods and caves in the Sauerland Hills while soldiers ransacked his farm. The viral essay says he was driven from his wife's deathbed and his fields destroyed. The record says she died with him at her side and the farm was looted, not leveled. The truth needs no exaggeration. He came home to ruin and died before the war ended. And Robert Morris, the man whose credit basically kept Washington's army alive, ended up in debtor's prison. Not from British revenge, but from ruinous land speculation after the war. The financier of the revolution died nearly penniless in 1806, which brings us to the last legend, the signer who supposedly ordered cannons to fire on his own house. Yorktown, 1781. British officers occupy the home of Thomas Nelson Jr., signer and commander of the Virginia militia. The legend says Nelson offered 5 gold guineas to the first gunner to hit his own house. It's a perfect story, which is exactly the problem. Historians call it likely embellished. Versions can't even agree whether he said it to Washington or Lafayette, and the cannonballs lodged in the walls today were placed there by the Park Service. But here's what's documented, and it's better than the legend. Nelson personally borrowed a fortune to fund Virginia's war effort, signing his own name to the loans when the state's credit failed. He was never repaid. He died owing money he'd spent on his country, too poor at the end to be buried with a marked grave. So here's the final honest ledger of the 56. Not one was hanged. Not one was tortured to death. Most, in fact, survived the war, many prospered and helped build the country they'd gambled on. The viral essay got the details wrong, but 5 were captured. 1 broke in prison and died broken, months before the victory he'd paid for. 1 let his sons rot on a death ship rather than take back his name. Wives were imprisoned, homes burned. Fortunes, real ones, vanished into the cause. That's the part the chain letter never needed to invent. They signed a document that should have killed them, expecting it might. The legend didn't need to be invented. The truth was already expensive enough. If stories like this are your thing, subscribe. Next, we're opening files history class skipped. And the full myth versus record breakdown of all 56 signers is in the companion guide linked below.